Welcome to Requity Insights, a channel dedicated to documenting our journey to 100 world-class communities. Welcome back to Requity Insights. I'm your host, Dylan Marma, and in today's episode, we're going to be going over our 90-day takeover plan. So you've found a property and you've put it under contract and you've secured both your debt and your equity and successfully closed on it. Now the fun part begins, actually taking over and beginning to operate the campground. The 90-day takeover plan is a comprehensive list which you can form into a checklist of tasks that needs to be completed within the first 90 days after acquiring a new property. These tasks are critical to the successful takeover of any community. They ensure that the property is properly structured, managed, staffed, marketed, which ultimately leads to happy guests and an increased revenue for the investors and a successful performance. It's a crucial period for any real estate operator or investor to set the stage for the future success of the property. So let's begin. Step one of the takeover checklist. Always be sure entity documents. Request and order any entity documents needed. This refers to obtaining all the necessary documents and paperwork related to the property's ownership, such as the title, deed, insurance documents, and then you always want to go ahead and make sure you have your EIN and your operating agreement for your LLC. It's important to ensure that these documents are accurate and up to date to avoid any legal issues down the road. Next, you have creating bank accounts. Ensure that all of your property bank accounts are set up. We generally set up separate bank accounts for each property, and actually we have multiple bank accounts for each property. We have one for our operating expenses, one for our capital expenditure budget, one for our draws, and then one for all of our escrows. Generally, you want to select the bank that you plan on using, open up the accounts, and just ensure that usually they're going to request from you the tax identification numbers, your EINs, your operating agreements, and then have you sign off on those accounts. Once you have your bank accounts, you want to next order your property credit cards. So we run a lot of our day-to-day expenses through the credit cards on the property, and it's important that generally before you go through the property onboarding process, you want to apply for the credit card. That generally involves selecting a credit card provider, applying for credit cards, and ensuring that all the necessary information is provided, such as the EIN, once again, and the signatory information. And usually, because the property and entity does not have an operating history, you're going to have to use your personal credit to some extent to get approval for the credit cards, unless you have an existing business that you can apply to guarantor the credit cards with. Next up, you will get your property investment and management software in place. So this is generally, you're gonna have your accounting software and then your front-end point of sale software that will be involved. So if you're working on a campground system, you'll use a front-end point of sale, and then you'll have your back-end accounting. We generally use AppFolio for accounting, but a lot of people use QuickBooks as well. Just making sure that you've set up your accounting software, you've uploaded the property to that software, and generally you've provided the software provider with all the necessary documents needed for them to register you on the platform. Having the right software in place is going to really streamline your operations day to day and is crucial for running your property in today's world. From there, you're going to begin to upload all of your documents, critical information to your software. This could be your vendor information, all of your bank account information, syncing all of your bank accounts, and then also setting up your online payables, your chart of accounts if you don't already have one, making sure you have the software ready to become operational when day one of the onboarding process hits. From there, it's time to focus on staffing. So getting your people right is the most important piece oftentimes of your operations, and usually we recommend starting with interviewing existing staff so that you can retain valuable employees and learn about the property, and ideally, we always say it's best if it works out well with the current staff on property because they know it well and they're already trained, and you just got to make sure you're setting the proper expectations because sometimes they may be doing things differently than they've done them in the past. But yeah, start with interviewing the existing staff, making sure they're open to staying on board, And if they are, then great. If not, make sure you're placing the employment ads for any vacant jobs and beginning to schedule interviews well ahead of time before your property onboarding process begins. A big piece of successful hiring comes down to setting the right expectations and creating the right team culture. So really focus on hiring people that have good attitudes. We especially for on-site team members, more than anything, we hire for character first and foremost, and make sure you have a good round 1, round 2 interview questionnaire put together. You have the ability to run background checks and screen your employees and talk to references prior to bringing them on. But yeah, good hiring process is crucial. Next, you want to be focused on your vendor accounts, requesting a list of the current vendors that work on the property from the current ownership group always goes a very long way. If you have merchant accounts that you need to set up, it's a good time to be thinking about setting up your merchant accounts with anyone that might be providing inventory to you, and then setting up your credit card payment terminals if you have on-site point of sale system, or if you're taking cards on your remote point of sale system. Definitely want to make sure you're getting your credit card payment terminals set up as well, and just think through your list of all of the vendors that are going to be in place. Do you have maybe an HVAC guy? Do you have landscaping crew that you should be in touch with? And we'll get into some of those vendors in a moment. Next, booking your travel planning. So booking the travel drive my team crazy every time, because you just don't always know what day you're going to close on the property leading up to the closing process. A lot of it is sort of in the lender's hand, and you're waiting on your survey to get back. But usually what we do is we just sort of keep our schedules flexible. I was told early on in my career from a title representative that I make sure that I do not schedule anything the week of a potential closing, and I've stuck true to that and keep my schedule very flexible, because at moment's notice it may be time to go to the title company and to get ready to close the deal. So, and a big thing for us is we still like to get a lot of our key team members out on site every time to be able to work together to have a successful onboarding process and work with the new team to get ready. So we'll keep our schedule flexible, and then as soon as we have a firm date set in stone for the transaction to take place, we'll book travel to fly out there and stay on site for the time that we believe is needed. Next, you have your reservation software. So we touched on this briefly, but if you're using a campground, if you're running a campground that has short-term reservations, or even say you have some cabins or short-term rentals, you'll want to make sure you have the reservation software set up. So this can example that we generally use is CampSpot as a reservation and booking software, and then for our short-term rentals we mainly use Guesty, which pushes out to the major OTA platforms to book on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, etc. And it's important that we have these set up, and not only do we have them set up, but we want to have any discount codes updated. We want to have our pricing schedule laid out so we know what our weekend pricing is versus weekday pricing. We know what the cost is for a one-night stay versus a 7-night stay or a 1-month stay, and we have all of our pricing schedules uploaded to the softwares. We've also worked with all of our dynamic pricing tools to be able to help optimize the potential pricing on any of our reservation platforms. So getting in there early is valuable. Getting good photos on those softwares is really, really important as well. We highly encourage you to get professional photos taken, as it's part of the checkout experience is being able to get a sense of what does that site look like, what does the place look like, and having quality photos uploaded within your softwares goes a very long way. In addition to that, you're going to want to upload all your previous reservations. Make sure you're working diligently with the ownership group to get a list of the previous reservations. It'd be a terrible way to start off if you don't have those reservations coordinated with, and you're going in dark, not understanding when people are going to be showing up. So you want to make sure you're being proactive with uploading all previous reservations. In addition to that, you want to make sure you add an inventory list. So if you have a store on site, making sure you're uploading the inventory list and everything else needed for your point of sale system. So next you want to have your site setup. So site setup, the big focus here is just labeling your different site types throughout the community. So do you have full hookup sites? Do you have partial hookup sites? Meaning, do you have water, sewer, and electric available at each site? Which sites have Wi-Fi? Which ones do not? Which ones are pull-through? Which ones are big? Which ones are small? What size camper fits in each of the different types of sites that you have on the property? These are all the questions that you want to be asking yourself when you're determining your site types. Usually, you're then going to go ahead and create a really big campground map, which is crucial because it makes it really easy for the guests to be able to navigate and understand which sites are where, and when they're showing up for their check-ins, it makes it easier for them to find their spot, makes it a much more seamless process, and when they're going through the booking map, they're able to see what types of sites that they're going to be receiving along the way. And then it's also important on your map to be able to emphasize all the key amenities so that if they're interested in booking near a certain amenity or a certain site, they can always look into being where they want to be throughout the campground. Next, you have your market study and capital improvements. So hopefully early on in your due diligence, you've done a thorough market study, but we don't think this is a one-time thing. We think this is an iterative process. So making sure that you're completing a thorough comp study and driving the comps and getting a feel for what your local competitors look like, and even building relationships with them. Though we call them competitors, it's really more about, think of them even more as just comparables, and work together with them to get a better feel for who else is in the area, because a lot of times you're all serving different audiences anyway, and you can kind of figure out how you can best strategize to work together, and you want to get a feel for what they're charging for different rates to make sure that you're staying within market and keeping a good pulse on any of the ebbs and flows that may take place within that market. And you're going to go ahead and create by now you should have, especially before property onboarding, you should have capital improvements, but creating a capital improvements plan and really starting to make sure you have all of the quotes in place for a lot of your CapEx budget so that you can begin to go out there and execute. For us, we're really big on lining up what we call early impact projects. So we want to be thinking about what are the things that we need to do to bring this place to its highest potential. And that could be amenities, right? What amenities are you bringing into the campground? Are you upgrading sites? Sometimes you might upgrade partial hookup sites to full hookup sites, or 30 amp electric to 50 amp electric. Are you going to renovate the clubhouse? Are you going to hold more events, right? Know what your early impact projects are and communicate them, right? Once they're set in stone and you feel confident you're going to be able to execute on these projects you have in mind, communicating those can be a really helpful way to sort of win over the guests from the place and get their buy-in that you really are here to make this a better place, and it's not going downhill as a lot of them might fear when they see a new ownership in town, right? They want to get comfortable with you, and the best way you can do it is to tell them what you're going to do and then follow through on your word and show them that you do what you say you're going to do. Next up, we have marketing and branding. So getting your online presence right is crucial. Generally, we recommend before property onboarding that you have a website set up. If you're going to rebrand the website or whatever it might be, getting your online presence established, getting the site up and running and linking that to the previous domain if you are switching domains so that you don't lose the traction that the domain has when it comes to the SEO. You want to order new signage. So in addition to now that you might have new logos and signage, ordering signage with your sign providers for your on-site real estate, creating brochures, marketing flyers, and welcome packets that you can hand out on-site, and then again back online you have your Google ads, Facebook ads, and you might also be doing some physical billboards as well, making sure you have your ads set up, and day one you're ready to start getting the word out there as much as possible about the improvements you plan to make and that sort of thing. And Facebook groups, Facebook pages are really, really important as well. So it's all about, again, communication, setting the right expectations, and following through on those expectations is the number one way to be able to get the buy-in and build the community that you're hoping to build. From there, make sure you're double checking all of your inventory and accounts. So we've mentioned creating your inventory list and making sure you go through the store and see what they currently have in inventory, and then make sure you have a clear list of what you plan to order and keeping track of your inventory. That also doubles to your maintenance inventory, right? You might have certain things that you keep on deck when it comes to, maybe it's your linens and your towels and your soap for your short-term rentals, or maybe it's things like you may have a on-site storage and a bunch of tools that the maintenance team uses, and make sure you have an inventory of what tools are on property so nothing just goes missing, and you're able to keep a good pulse and be proactive with your inventory management side of things. Then you have your transfer and setting up of new accounts with vendors. So you want to make sure that before property closes, that you're in touch with the water and sewer company, the Wi-Fi company, the propane company, if you have cable, the cable company, the trash company, maybe landscaping, all of the vendors that are making the day-to-day run. You want to be working with them and ensuring that you're there to either transfer over the account or set up a new account with them. So day one, you're not scrambling, or you're not having the power company come out and turn your lights off or anything like that. So then from there, we're going to be engaging. We generally do a cost segregation study to be able to help maximize the tax advantages for the community. So we usually, around the time of closing, we'll engage our cost segregation expert to go out and begin to help us understand the useful life of each aspect of the campground, so that at the end of the year, when it comes to tax time, we are able to maximize the tax advantages. Now, communication, I've already stressed this a lot, but it's really important to communicate well and early with your people. People just don't like change, and it makes them uncomfortable. So I think it's really important that you have a takeover, or I like to even say just an onboarding notice, of the transfer of ownership that's taking place, so that the current residents or guests, you're able to deliver to them the news of any, and really clearly outline any changes that are taking place. If there is changes in the rates, that's going to be a big question. So we usually recommend just getting ahead of that and being clear on what the updated rate schedule is going to look like. If there is changes in amenities or the way things are going to be run, be clear and proactive on that. And hopefully, our objective is always to have the good news outweigh any bad news in these communications. If there is rate increases that are taking place, we want to be able to show this is what we're doing to make it a better place, or to be able to justify the increased rate if that is something that is taking place. So we really like to work collaboratively with the guests from our different communities, and we don't have a hard set in stone CapEx plan for every dollar before we close on the property. We like to actually get a feel for what the people want and kind of survey the different guests or residents and get a sense of what do they want, what's in high demand there, who are they, and how can we make this the best experience for them. And they might say, well, we actually get tired of having music every weekend. We want more quiet weekends, or vice versa, right? We want more events, or we want more bingo nights, or we want more stuff for the kids to do, or we need more amenities for the pets, and we need a dog park, right? You're going to get all kinds of information just by spending time on the property and getting to understand what the people are looking for and how can you better serve them. And that's the big focus, is trying to really be just a listening ear and observing what's going on at the point of the transition. In addition to that, by now you may see if you have expansion opportunity where you can expand on the land itself. You may order surveys, or you may start creating a site plan for any expansion land and that sort of thing as well, in addition to getting quotes for upgrading utility systems and things along those lines. Moving into the next category, we have your administrative items. So again, just making sure you have all the office supplies and computer equipment that you need for your staff, to make sure that they have everything they need to do their job well. We also recommend creating a dashboard, or what we call the pulse report for the property, that helps kind of give us all the high level information that we report on each week to ensure that we're executing to the business plan and everyone's able to focus on the numbers that matter most. Ordering, you might have business cards, or a lot of times we have magnets that we give out, and those are usually a big hit. Any branded merch can go a long way, t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, whatever it might be, to kind of help offer merch to the different guests that come through. Then you have your new hire paperwork. Make sure you have them sign off on any contracts needed to get their job started, because you're not just assuming them from the previous company. They're starting a new job at a new company the day that you close on a property. And making sure you're setting up your Google My Business. We're all about Google reviews, and Google My Business takes usually a few days to kind of get up and running. So claim your Facebook page, claim your Google My Business. Making sure you're talking with the current ownership group ahead of time if they have existing ones, to make sure that transition goes smoothly. And then really make sure you're spending the proper time to train the new team members effectively. So that's all for today's episode. That's just a high-level overview of our takeover checklist, and I'm sure we have plenty more that we can add to that list, and we will add to that list over time, but hopefully that gives you a good starting point as to a lot of the key action items that you should be thinking about when you're onboarding a new property. And thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to sign up for our email newsletter, which is linked in our notes below. And as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Requity Insights hosted by our team at the Requity Group. You can find recordings of all shows along with our opt-in form to set up a call and view future investment offerings on our company website, therequitygroup.com, also listed in the show notes.